official meeting of the Instructor Lecture Excellence Program. Some of you, how many people were able to come in August? I know that was very important. Okay, so I know some of you were here in August, some weren't able to come, but are able to come to the whole program. If you didn't see me on that day, I'm Krista Derrickson. I'm the coordinator. I'm a lecturer in the biology department, but for this role, I'm kind of helping out the Faculty Excellence Office to coordinate this brand new program. And this is the first of the sessions that we'll have all year. Each session, which you can see, is going to be a little bit different topic, different guest speakers. My role pretty much is just getting the speakers to come to talk to you, and then I step out of the way and let their expertise take over. I just wanted to, I know you have the agendas hopefully in front of you, and before I forget, two important things. You do want to make sure you are signing in our little sign-in sheet, either before you are able to sit down or before you take off, because that is our official sort of tallying of whether or not you attend the sessions, and we get to input that into your official dossiers, and you have evidence that you attended the program. So that's really important, just physically putting your name on that sheet. Also, these are Skype presentations, so there are colleagues of ours in Melbourne and the Lake Meta campus, all over the place that aren't able to come, so they are able to Skype in. So it is being Skyped, and it is also recorded at the same time. And that's something I just want to let you know, just so you're aware that whatever we're saying is theoretically being recorded, and will be able to be archived so that people can listen to it later. Okay, so as you said, I'm pretty much just going to introduce our speakers. You will continue, a couple questions just before I forget all the little housekeeping things. You'll continue to get invites for every month. Obviously, it's case-by-case basis. If you can come, we would love the ideas for people to be able to come to as many as they possibly can. But if you can't come on a given month, to decline the invitation, we're trying to get a feel for volumes and numbers of people. We do have the 2 times, both Wednesdays and Thursdays, so that helps. But I guess overall, is the semester going okay? Everybody settling in? I know I can need another Labor Day already. Only Wednesday this week. It'll be nice to have that couple weeks from now. But this is the sort of programming for this particular session is kind of getting back to that semester going, some logistics. And it's ideally, the programs and the people or guest speakers are going to be speaking on is services for students, but we're as faculty related to that. How many of you are starting to get the accommodation letters? You have the emails sent to. If you start, I have my first exam, next Monday, and I'm starting to get those. Coming into my mailbox, trying to figure out what to do with them, and sometimes it's very clear cut. You just have to get the exam over to the testing center for them to take. Other times it's more complicated with some of the accommodations. And I know I personally have had questions about how much do I need to do to help the student, what is the student's responsibility, what from the office, accessibility, help them. What is my role? And that's what part of the goal of this program is to give you guys the resources, the connections, not to be experts on every little part of the topic, but just when you're sitting in your office and you have a question about a student, you know who to get in contact with. And that's one of the reasons why we're bringing in the individuals we are. The flip side, the other, as you can see, actually our first speaker that we're on board is Jennifer Wright, she's the Director of Integrity and Ethical Development, Office of Student Rights and Responsibility, that's a long title. But unfortunately, that's another part of our job, where you start giving exams, you start getting assignments, and you start dealing with integrity issues and issues with what do I do if I catch a student cheating? What kind of process do I go through? And sometimes it is really hard to know, what to do. And we all like to help the students, and we don't know where does our role start and stop, and we have to turn it over to other individuals at the university. So that's the other goal, is to get us connected. So Jennifer's going to start, and then as our Director of Student Accessibility Services will take over after she's done, and hopefully we'll all come out of this with a little bit more information to know these first couple exams and weeks as we go forward.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hope everyone is doing well. I really appreciate the opportunity to come in and work with you all today. I see a couple of familiar faces that I have worked with in the past, and I hope that this will be an opportunity for us to develop some new partnerships and continue ones that we already have. Again, my name is Jennifer Wright. I'm the very proud Director of the Office of Integrity and Ethical Development, which is a part of the Office of Student Rights and Responsibilities within the Division of SDES, Student Development and Enrollment Services. So to start off with just a brief overview of student rights and responsibilities to let you know of the different areas that are represented there. Within the office, Title IX reporting and support services is located in OSRR, as we call it. We also have the admissions clearance officer is in there as well, who looks at any issues of students entering the university that might have had an experience or a situation in the past. And we are going to go ahead and do kind of a little bit of a background check to see where they are with some experiences that they've had, and also we're the home of the UCF Creed. We have a 15-year celebration of the UCF Creed coming up this month, so you'll be getting emails about that and seeing a lot of information for you to be a part of it. Also is the Office of Student Conduct. That's where incident reports of academic misconduct can be reported and incidents that involve any of the other parts of the Golden Rule. There's 18 rules of conduct that all students are supposed to know about and are supposed to adhere to. But if there is something that they have done that is an infraction or a violation of that, that can be reported to the Office of Student Conduct, and I'll get a little bit more into that when we talk about academic misconduct. It's also the home of the Golden Rule, which is our handbook for students, and our rules and conduct. Also, it's the home of the Student Conduct Board, and I'm here on behalf of Student Conduct and saying we need faculty to serve on the board. And it is not a large time commitment as it may seem. I used to serve on the board many, many years ago in my first position here at UCF. And what it entails as far as the time commitment is attending a training session, all right, a day-and-a-half training session. And then as you're available would be to be a part of the Student Conduct Board. Is there anybody here currently who does serve? I thought I recognized some faces. Yes, very good, okay. So you have some colleagues here that if you'd like some more information, please talk to them. They're the ones doing this. So it's great to have representation there. We need more, okay? We need more faculty representation on the board. If you're interested in that, you can just go ahead and get on the Student Conduct Board website and email Michael Gilmer, who is the director. He'd be glad to take your information and see how you would like to move forward. Yes,
say one
please.
Thing. Yeah, I've been serving on the board for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And the cool thing about it is it forces you to actually learn the policies of the university. So, and the student rights and their responsibilities. So that's something that it does help me in my work as a faculty member. So it kind of forces you through that process.
And you are certainly supported through that entire process. And you would know in advance the students who are involved. So in case that you might have them in a class or mentor them or anything as such, of course you would be recused from that in their case as well. So very gratifying, very rewarding thing to be a part of. And then lastly, we have Student Care Services, which is houses the Student of Concern form. That again, anybody is allowed to fill that out, including faculty, of course. So if there is a student that you are concerned about, and either if there's a radical change in behavior, if there is something to do with something that you might read in an assignment, or they come to your office and you're very concerned about them, you can go ahead and get them connected to Student Care Services, and then they can take it from there and make sure they have the appropriate resources. They are also a place that helps homeless students. If a student recognizes themselves as homeless and you want to connect them, please give them to Student Care Services. So many resources are available, including housing, financial assistance, etc. So we have a great case manager who is responsible for that. And also, if unfortunately we do have a student who passes away, this is the office here as well that will take care of protocols for student death response as well. I do understand we have folks who are Skyping in, as you mentioned before. This goes for any regional campus. It's not just main campus. This is for regional campuses as well. All of these services are here. Okay, so we have to make that connection to a regional campus or medical school. Will be more than happy to do it. It's just not for main campus. And then the area that I'm here to speak about is in regard to academic integrity is the biggest part of the piece of the work that I do, and you can see here the services that we provide. We're responsible for the academic integrity module. We are revising that as we speak. So next fall, we are going to have a new module out for students that is a little bit more updated with some relevant information and trends that we have seen. Turnitin.com, if you need an account, I am the university representative along with Erin Bean, the Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning. So either one of us can help you with a Turnitin.com account. And then we also do training sessions for faculty. Here's a couple of them listed here. I do have the comprehensive list here with dates and times, but those are also available on our website. So we welcome anybody to attend those. Again, they're all about academic misconduct and academic integrity, and you can see some of the titles there. If you're unable to attend, we'll be more than happy to come to a departmental staff meeting or do anything individual that is necessary. We do a ton of outreach programming to students, so I want you to know when I'm out there doing the outreach for students, I have my faculty advocate hat on. And I am speaking from what I hear and from what I know that faculty would like students to know about how to conduct themselves within your class. So I'm constantly going in there and trying to tell students, all right, let's make sure we're careful on this area. Let's make sure we're talking to our professors about this. This is how you approach them, all of that kind of stuff. Because my goal is to make sure that they are doing what they are supposed to do inside the classroom so you can do the work that you need to be doing. And then lastly, any student who is found in violation of academic misconduct is automatically sanctioned to our office. So we do a lot of education. That's our reactive services. All the other ones are our proactive services. So this is our reactive services that we provide to students. So we do a lot of education in making sure that, of course, it won't happen again, but bigger than that, for them to learn why did that even occur to start with. Now, I have things that I would like to have discussed here today, but please know your needs are more important than what I have in the PowerPoint. So if you already have some thoughts or issues going on with academic integrity or academic misconduct, please feel free to start that conversation. Let's not worry what's up there. Everybody will be able to get this eventually. In addition, don't cancel class, call us, okay? So if you have a conference coming up or you know you need to take some time, I cannot substitute your discipline. I had a wonderful physics professor ask me, and he was like, can you come in and go over chapter 7? And I'm like, no, I'm a business major. I'm the last person to do anything with that. So no, I can't do the discipline, but I sure as all heck can come on in and do a workshop on your behalf. So if it's something around the area of integrity, ethics, professionalism, career readiness, be more than happy to come in and do that. We're available after 5. You don't have to be there to introduce me. I'll take attendance, I'll collect things. I've done that before. When things are due, get them to your office, whatever you need. Okay, so I'll be more than happy to come in if that is necessary as well. And then we do a lot of, like I said before, outreach programming to students. And this is our workshop series and some of the titles and topics that we discussed there with students. Any questions about our programs or services at all? Okay. So why is academic integrity important? I think this is something that we need to be consistently addressing to students. It doesn't have to be in their face, but it certainly has to have a conversation. All right, because we have a lot of issues of academic misconduct happening in the high school areas. So as they go ahead and matriculate here to the college level, sometimes they're like, well, I'm still seeing it, so it must be okay. Or I got away with it before, I'm sure I can get away with it here. So we want to make sure that we're having these really good conversations. And why is it important to you? Let your students know why is it important to you. I teach a class here as well. Actually, I used to. I've taken some time off from teaching. But that was a big part of our conversation at the beginning of the semester and then certain times throughout the semester, so that students would have an understanding of why this is necessary for us to go ahead and be a part of this philosophy, be a part of this movement in regarding integrity and promoting that. Why is it important to the university? Well, integrity is in our creed, part of our creed, okay? So we need to make sure that we are upholding that if students are demonstrating it, that they're acknowledged for that, and if they choose not to, that we do understand that we want to honor those who are doing it well, and those who choose not to, there are consequences and repercussions to that, okay? So we want to keep having this conversation with students often. It is important so they have an understanding of it. So, as I'm saying, we need to communicate. Now, I do understand students should know this. I hear this a lot. Well, students should know not to cheat. Well, of course they should know not to cheat, all right? We still need to talk about this because there's a different layer that is being added now, and part of the, if I want to call it research, that I have been doing in this area, working with students who have been found in violation. Here's the big thing. This is what's in the students' minds right now. Okay, this generation that is before us, they take their academics very, very seriously. Now, I'm a product, all right, of the generation before, and I'm not saying we didn't care, but I have not heard as much stress, anxiety, overwhelmingness as I hear now. I talk to students all the time about what does a B look like to you? A B now means bad. Okay? A B means bad. In my day, if I got a B, I was bragging about it. Okay? Because, whoo, look at me, I got a B. Right? Gives you a little hint of my undergraduate career. There, that was something great. Look at me. A C meant celebrate. You passed. Move on. Yay me. Okay? Physical science 1 and 2. Yay me. Okay? Got a C and a C plus. Yay. Moving on. Didn't take it to my self-worth. I didn't take it to my self-confidence. I didn't move it to my head of saying I'm not good enough. And because I only got a C or a C plus in physical science meant the next 70 years of my life wasn't going to be great. That's what they think now. That is exactly what they think now. I worked with a young lady just yesterday who has already had 2 semesters here with us, and she has 4.0 both semesters. And she's taking a particular course, human anatomy right now, and she's very nervous about it. And I said, so what would happen? Let's go worst case scenario, you've got to be. Well, she just turned gray and went, I can't have a B. Okay, but what happens if you did get a B? No, I can't get a B. You know, and then she starts whispering like nobody's supposed to know, but that's what she started to do. And so I wanted to work with her anxiety about that. I wanted to work with her self-image and her self-confidence about it. Because when it moves to that place, that's why they cheat. That is why they'll go ahead and move their moral compass when they know exactly at that moment what they are doing is wrong. I had a young lady who wrote formulas on her hand. And I said, what did you think when you were writing them on your hand? She goes, I knew that was the wrong thing to do. I said, why did you follow through? You still had an opportunity to wash them off. You had an opportunity to get rid of it. But you followed through. Why? Because I have to be perfect. So the overwhelmingness of their head going, I have to be the best. I have to be number 1. And all of that is out there. So I feel part of our job can be, let's calm down a little bit about this and have an idea of what these grades and this perspective is really about. Okay? And I've said to students 1,000 times, my undergraduate degree, I graduated with a 2.67, but I'm living a 4.0 life. So there is not a direct correlation to our undergraduate GPA and what our lives become. Did I have to hustle? Yeah, because of the 2.67? Oh yes, I had to hustle. Okay, and I did that to myself. But I certainly didn't go ahead and say, well, all I can accumulate is what a C plus is in life. But that is where they are. And that's what's triggering this. Okay, do you have any thoughts on that? At all, anybody else kind of seeing that in your classes, this overwhelmingness of I have to be perfect, I have to be the best?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm in Burnett School of Biomedical Sciences, so anatomy and physiology are my fields. It really comes to what's next. And so med school's next, dental school's next. And so that's really what's driving this, because we have so many students that are qualifying into these positions and so few positions that now you've got 100 with over a 4.0, 100
Correct.
students that have this dossier that's just incredible,
Right.
and they're fighting for single-digit positions.
And yeah, it's very troubling for them. I also worked with a graduating senior recently who said, he goes, I heard a sound bite on TV, and I'm like, well, that's a problem. And he said 11% of graduating seniors, undergrad, are unemployed. What am I going to do? And I go, let's do some math. 100 from 11, please. You know, and it's like, I go, 89% of them are hired. Why can't that be you? Yeah, but 11% don't. I go, 89% do. So again, we have this mindset going on. There's parental pressures. There's all sorts of those kind of things going on as well. I cannot sit back and blame parents on this. There's some I would, but not as a whole that I would do that, but understanding where this comes from. That does not mean they get a free pass for choosing the behavior that they did in causing academic misconduct to happen. It is not an excuse, but this is the reality of where they are. So I know my time is drawing to a close, so I wanted just to go ahead and end with here are some timely conversations that you can have throughout the semester with students. These are some that I would recommend to have. So when you're going to give out any papers or projects, please talk about collaboration and what that truly means and what is your definition of it and how do they avoid collaboration, and be very specific about, no, there is no other work going on with others. When you're returning graded work, maybe have a conversation about that. I gave a 10-point quiz the first week of class, and there was a young lady who got a 0 out of 10 on it. She was, can I still get an A? Yes. 10 points is all we have so far. We have 990 to go. We might just need to remind them where we are in the syllabus about that. Before an exam, to get them ready for it, okay, talk to them about that kind of thing. Your policy regarding late work, okay, because a lot of students are concerned about meeting up with a faculty member and saying, I might need an extension. All right, you have a right to say no to that. Please understand that. But I'd rather them come and talk to you than go ahead and buy a paper, all right, off of wonderful essay mills that we have out there. And then before the withdrawal deadline, that would be another great time to have. Okay? Yes.
I get the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Because of you, I'm going to fail out of school because I'm already back on academic probation and you're the reason.
Mm-hmm.
And your insane policy about not taking late work and expecting the math numbers to actually equal the solution.
Mm-hmm.
What is your recommendation for me?
Well,
That poses a thank you. Gave me all the easier.
The big thing is, I have had that on an occasion as well, and then I always pull out the syllabus, and I'll say, it was here, where did I fail you in not communicating this? Now, when you do a little self-deprecation on that, they usually go, well, no, you really didn't have anything to do. There we go, you're correct, I didn't have anything to do with it. So the next conversation is, here's where we are now, here's where you are. So let's have a conversation how we continue to move forward on it, okay? But I have done that a lot. I'm going, where did I fail you in this written syllabus that I had the first day of class, the second day of class, we talked about this. Where did I fail you and not, why is this, you're sounding like this is surprise, you know, that I all of a sudden just said I don't take late work. It was here. When you tell them that, where did I fail you, they usually come back around and they'll say, no, that's right, it was there. Oh, okay. So as long as we have an understanding, now the blame is not to be put here. Let's work and move forward. Here's how many points you have. Here's how much of all this. They might need to walk through this. All right? And let them go ahead and vent. It's not going to change anything. Let them vent. And say, okay, so you say that I have an insane late work policy. Well, what would you change it to? If you had 360 students in your class, what would you change it to? Do you understand why I need work on time? Let me go through that again. Sometimes it has to be broken down, all right? But I would just pull that syllabus out and go, it was here. So let's talk about reality, where we are, okay? Because you venting to me about this doesn't change how much more you have, okay? Yes?
I have a real basic question. So, is there a policy with the school that says if a professor catches a student cheating, we must refer it to the Office of Student Conduct, or do we have the prerogative to handle it on our own?
You have the prerogative to handle it on your own, but here's the reason why we encourage the reporting. Is that if you go ahead and report, yes, and let's say it happens again in another instructor's class and they choose not to report it, then we do not know if we have habitual cheaters going on. Okay, so yes, you have a right to go ahead and take care of it on your own. We would prefer to know, okay, that this is happening so we can make sure that if there are students who are doing it repeatedly in other classes, then we know we have a bigger system to work on here.
Can we take care of it on our own, but still report it to you without even going to student conduct?
That would be a conversation that you would need to have with the director of student conduct, with Mike Gilmer on that one. I don't want to speak on conduct's behalf. say this, for me, I am not conduct, okay? I get them after the fact. So if something like that is going on and maybe you want to resolve it with you, but you're going, hey, I still would like them maybe to meet or attend one of your workshops, we can work that out. And I can report to you that Jane came to a session with me. I won't tell you what we talked about, but I can tell you certainly that she came, okay? So if we want to do a little something that way. I hate to say it in this area of cheating and all that, but numbers did matter for us to be able to continue to do some great work. So I'm not going, let's be vigilant and, like that. But I go to conferences and there are areas in different universities who have close to 2,000 reports a semester. And I sit here for representing UCF, they go, so you guys must have hundreds of thousands. And I'm like, we have a lot, but I don't ever want to tell our numbers because our numbers are in the 200s. Okay, so it's a tough one. It's a tough one. Yeah.
And maybe you can clarify, so I remember, I think when you submit a student of conduct form, you can indicate on it if you want the student to go through the conduct process.
That's been changed.
Okay.
Just changed with the new golden rule.
Gotcha.
Just changed.
So it's true, that's not true.
It's not true.
That's not true.
Not true.
I have a couple questions from Skype.
Okay.
Oh, hopefully they're listening.
That's exciting.
Okay, so let me see if I can do this. Is the AI, the contemporary module, I assume that's what it means, still done through my UCF with mandatory prompting for completion, usually at first entrance to university? So for instance, for a student coming in, do they have to go through the module?
Yes, every single brand new student, freshman, transfer, medical, graduate, all participate in that module. And it is actually going to be going live for students next week. We decided to go ahead and move that further down the calendar so it would coincide with maybe first exams. And hopefully maybe some of the messages will deter some folks from doing that. So they'll be getting it from
This one, I'm not so sure. It says, in terms of grade intervention, we tried the feedback online, stay the course, get done, finish with the C and above, and it worked well, but the web course tool has been lost.
That one I'm not too sure about, but I do have really good connections in web courses through CDL. So if that person wants to email me that question, I can certainly connect them to the right area.
I'm the Director of Student Accessibility Services and also Inclusive Education Services here on campus, the latter of which is a relatively new college experience for students with intellectual disabilities that I'm not going to spend time on today. I'm here to talk about Student Accessibility Services. So before I get into it, I just want to run through a real quick scenario for you. Imagine that an individual who uses a wheelchair approaches a building, not like this one, which is, I really do appreciate the design here, but imagine they approach a building, they're using a wheelchair, and the building has no ground level entry like this building does. There's no ramp to get access, up to get into the door. You have to go up a flight of stairs or a couple flights of stairs in order to have access to this particular building. So this person who uses the wheelchair is not able to get access to the building. Is it that person's problem that he or she can't access the building, or is it a fault of society and how the building was designed that's keeping that person from accessing? What do you think? This is a society issue, right, and how that building was designed. So I just want you to keep that concept in the back of your mind as I go through the presentation today of what we do. Our office, our vision at Student Accessibility Services is really to make UCF a fully accessible and inclusive campus for people with disabilities. Our primary focus is working with students, but we do believe that changes that we are able to implement around campus can benefit all individuals. And for example, I'm really excited this session is actually in this building. About a year and a half ago, I reached out to facilities and we had some conversations. And one of the things that facilities share, or that I share with facilities, was that one of the #1 complaints we get from people with physical disabilities is that our restroom access on our campuses is really, really poor. And so through conversations and just different things that unfolded, what they committed to, and this is the first building that has this in place, is that all new buildings that we build on campus, all of the restrooms in the building on all of the floors will automatically have actuators, those buttons that you push, installed at the restroom. So if you look at these restrooms here, first, second, third floor, male, female, the restroom, the actuators are there on each of the floors. And that's the first of the kind here on campus, and that'll continue to be happening as we go forward. So this is just an example of things that we do, not just for students, but we're hoping that it's going to be a benefit for campus. But to make campus accessible, we do this by acknowledging that really the disability is an aspect of diversity. Often when we have conversation on diversity, disability is not included in many of those other areas that we frequently want to talk about. So we want to make sure that disability is included in that. And then really all these other things just talk about really how do we build partnerships and how do we facilitate conversations. So with you as faculty, with staff, with other people on campus to make this the most accessible campus possible for individuals. If you look at our numbers, going back to 2002, at the start of the year, we had 907 students connected with our office, and as of this past academic year just completed, we had 2,077 students connected with us. So we've been growing really, really rapidly over the past few years. Now, so for those of you who are math majors, you are very familiar with math, you may see this and say, okay, well, 2,000 students, we're on a campus of 60,000 plus, that's about 3% of the student population. Not that big of a deal. What we're talking about today is probably not going to pertain to me too much, but we're only talking about 3% of the campus population. But if I show you this next slide, of all of the course sections that we offered in spring 2016, about 40% of the course sections had at least one student with a disability in their classes. And if we take it to the next slide, of all faculty who taught classes in spring 2016, almost 70% of faculty had at least one student with a disability in their classes last year. So that 2%, that 3% reach goes far and wide beyond, I think, what most people really imagine when we talk about the experience of students with disabilities in the classroom. So when we talk with students, what they identify as the biggest barrier, they come to our office not necessarily because they have a learning disability, not because they're blind, not because they're deaf. These are the things that they identify as being the biggest barriers for them when they come to our office. The physical barriers, such as the ramp or the bathroom access, like I had mentioned. Processes, policies, and procedures. So the course design and how it's developed, and the attendance policy, and the makeup policy, and all those sorts of things may be creating barriers for students. And what we talk a lot about are the attitudes, or the lack of awareness, the lack of understanding, maybe the lack of compassion from faculty, from staff, and from other people on campus. To someone who just, the students just say, I'm trying to tell them about having seizures and what that means, but the professor just doesn't care about that. This is the policy, this is what they care about. And so I'm just not getting any traction in this area. Can you help me to work with my faculty member to try to work something out? So again, it's not really the disability that brings them to the office, it's these things. So subsequently, this is what we're working on, is how do we create access around these issues. For those of you who've been around campus for a little while, we were, as of about a year and a half ago, we're doing Student Disability Services, and we changed our name to Student Accessibility Services because we're not treating disability, we're not making a learning disability go away, we're not making somebody who's blind see better. Our focus is on the accessibility and creating a better accessible campus for everyone. So within the classroom realm, where we're all here today, we recognize that the classroom environment and the intersection of the student and that environment, that's what really creates the disability. That's what creates the barrier to access for the individual. So how do we work around that? It's not just the student, it's not just the disability. So as an example, imagine that I am a deaf person. I'm fluent in ASL, I'm fluent in sign language, and I'm taking 2 classes. In these 2 classes, one of them is more of a, let's say, a lecture class like this. So I'm out there in the crowd with you. I'm up, the professor person is up here talking and instructing. As a deaf individual, I'm going to have a barrier, right, to access to that communication. So you probably see a sign language interpreter up here as an example, communicating to me so I can get the content that's being spoken in the class. So suppose my other class is a fully online class that doesn't meet in person at all. And let's say, maybe unusual in this day and age, but let's say this is also a class where the professor doesn't use any videos of any kind. So it's all just written content. It's go read these chapters. It's chat work with the groups or whatever the case may be. So it's a lot of written kind of thing, right? Lots of reading and writing. Well, in that particular situation, assuming I don't have any other disabilities, I may not need any accommodations. I don't need an ASL interpreter. I can read, I can write, I can communicate with students through chats. So that's all fine for me. I don't have any barriers to access. So I'm the same person, an individual who's deaf, but the 2 different environments and the design of those environments, that's what's dictating whether or not I need accommodations. And we see that play out with a lot of other students as well too. A student with a learning disability, some struggle really with multiple choice exams. So if they're in your class and you have all multiple choice exams, they're probably going to recognize that as a barrier and they need extra time to take their test. But they may go to another class and it's all essay exams, or maybe it's a math-based exam. And therefore, are in that situation, the learning disability doesn't create a barrier with how that test is set up. So they may very well be taking the test in the classroom without accommodations. So it's all about how that design is set up, how the course is really styled, and that's going to play a large role in whether or not a student with a disability needs any accommodations in your respective course. So forms of access might be proactive design, so having videos on websites or only showing videos in the classroom that are already captioned so that students who are deaf or students with language barriers, with English as a second language, can access the content rather easily, or ramps or actuators, things like I mentioned. But then again, like I talked about earlier, how do we really shift attitudes and perceptions and create greater awareness in terms of working with individuals? Or how do we look at options and considerations beyond what might be typical or normal or even on the accommodation letter, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. So common accommodations to our office, the most common one by far is students with extended time will take exams in our office. We proctor over 8,000 exams during a calendar year, so we have many students that will work with many faculty to facilitate that accommodation. We have more and more students who are using technology for tests, so text to speech, so taking what's on print and putting it in an audio format or audible format so students can hear that. Speech to text, so that would be, I have a real difficult time typing, so I'm going to talk into the computer and that's going to put the text onto the screen for me, accessible keyboards, etc. We have our greatest, growing, fastest group of students who are connecting with us, largest population of students with these chronic health conditions. So chronic migraines, Crohn's disease, seizures, fibromyalgia, cancer, those sorts of things. And what the students are by and large telling us is that, I'm in this class and this is the attendance policy, or there is no makeup exam policy, or there are no late assignments that are accepted. And I hear what Jennifer's saying, and there are certainly reasons for having those policies when managing a class, and we get that. But what the students are also telling us is that, hey, I have this chronic condition, and you know what, my body just doesn't always function so I can get to class at 10 a.m. And a lot of these students, stress is the #1 exacerbator of that condition. So when they're studying for the test and they're preparing for that, and then lo and behold, they get stressed out, they have a flare-up of their condition, now they've missed the exam. What are my options? What is available to me to try to work around this? So we're working with more and more faculty on an individual basis to try to figure out how can we work around that policy in a way that respects what you're trying to accomplish and manage those large classrooms, but at the same time with this individual situation before us. So course notes, we have a lot of students who really difficult to listen to what's being said and then also take notes at the same time. So we have a couple different options for students to get access to course notes. We're also encouraging students to use technology more and more when feasible. Alternative media such as textbooks and electronic formats, interpreting and captioning, and then access to written content for students with visual impairments as well. So those, again, are the most common accommodations. And briefly, what I just talk about is the course accessibility letter, because this, for many of you, is going to be your first connection with our office, or this is going to alert you to when you have a student who is connected with our office who's also in one of your courses. So this is that link of communication. We email it to you upon request from the student. So the student has to let us know when they want the accommodation letter, which we now call a course accessibility letter, emailed to you. And within our system, students actually have the choice of saying, I want my course accessibility letter emailed to all instructors, or they can go through and say, I just want it to the psychology professor, but not the history professor or whatever. So it's really up to them as how they want to do that. And then even within that, they have a list of accommodations that we initially identify with them, but they can also even pinpoint down to, I want my psychology professor to know about the extended time for exams, but maybe math isn't that big of a deal, and they don't need extended time for that, but they need the note taker, so they could actually also identify that as well. I will say most students don't choose that option. They will just put all of the accommodations that we've identified on their accommodation letter. They just want that to go to their professors. So for the accommodation letter, the course accessibility letter provides the basic information to you about what types of access and accommodations are needed. And what I really want to point out here is there are a number of limitations with the course accessibility letter, and this is where when we have faculty and instructors reach back to us, they have some concerns. I'm hoping to dispel some of those, so if you get a letter in the future, maybe it'll kind of help you kind of shape what you're reading a little bit. We determine what's on the course accessibility letter through our initial conversation with students. So the student comes in, I have a learning disability, we talk about that, so what are the barriers? Well, I generally need more time for exams, so we talk about that. I have a really difficult time taking notes, so we might add a course note taker. So we'll identify some of these things based on our conversation, based on any documentation, and then we'll add that to the course accessibility letter. But what's happening in your classroom, right, that's not known at the time that we send that letter to you. So when you get that letter, we have no idea that you have no multiple choice exams or any exams for that matter. You're all group work and presentations, or you are just all tests and you're not in any presentation. We don't have any idea of what's happening in the classroom. So when you get that letter, what may happen is you may look that over, and sometimes what you see is, hey, what's listed on this letter here doesn't really align with what's happening in my class. And you're right, that very well may be a disconnect in terms of our communication, because again, we don't know what's happening in the classroom. So if I could put that visually, what I just kind of described, really we see access in a case-by-case situation equals the student with a disability plus the environment, so your classroom, plus reasonable accommodations. So again, we gather information from the student initially when we talk to them. We take that information, we compile that into the content that you get for the course accessibility letter. But again, we have really no knowledge of what's happening in your classroom. So what you see may not align with what's happening. We are aware of that, but I also know that sometimes instructors are very frustrated. We will get emails from people saying, well, hey, why did you send me this letter with extended time on my exams? I don't have any exams in my class. And you're right, so you're right. So that's a disconnect. But again, we don't know what's happening in the classroom. Another way to look at this is that this Venn diagram, student in a disability environment and reasonable accommodations. Ideally, natural access occurs when a student with a disability can access the environment without our involvement at all, and then maybe without you doing anything. So a student with a physical disability can just come right into this building, very flat entry, can go use the restroom, they don't need any assistance, they don't have to file any complaints, it's a very accessible scenario. Our accommodation letters really focus on the student disability and the reasonable accommodations. So again, that's really the content that we're sharing to you. And we recognize that when you look at the accommodation letter, you may be looking at it from the accommodations and what's happening in your classroom. But then when we all work together as needed, that's really where our facilitated access takes place, where we're bringing in your perspectives, bringing in the student, bringing in everything that we can to make this work. Now, I will say that 90% of the time, maybe, what's listed on an accommodation letter or course accessibility letter is going to be relevant and it's going to be pertinent to your class, and there really are very few issues, and we can work through that, and everything works out fine. But there are times where we know we have that disconnect, and that's where we really want to have that partnership with you to facilitate the best access possible. So when you get a course accessibility letter, what we really encourage you to do is consider the student's request relative to access needs in the disability situation. So if a student talks to you, a couple things are going to happen. They may reach out to you and say, hey, based on the accommodation letter, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I need. And so they will talk to you about that, and then you just work through the steps to facilitate access in the classroom or connecting with our office, such as having a student take the test in our office. But if there are things that are not, the student is bringing up that's not on the letter, or what's on the letter doesn't really align with your class, whatever the case may be, what is the ultimate access need or barrier concern behind the request? If the student is bringing up something else that's not on the letter, what's going on relative to your course that they're talking about? What is that barrier to access? And then how do you kind of talk to the student about how to facilitate that access? If the request is, and with that, I would say you have the option of either working with the student directly to try to facilitate an outcome that you think would make sense. If you want our involvement in that situation, you're welcome to contact us, and we will help navigate through whatever that particular situation is as well. If a request on the course accessibility letter is not reasonable, what other options might be reasonable? So if, I'll go back to extended time. If extended time is not a reasonable accommodation in your class, well, why is that on there in the first place? What is it that's not reasonable about that option in your class? and how can we work through that barrier to create access for the student. And you don't always have to approve requests that a student makes, but we do encourage you to consider it, and we encourage you to contact our office if you want any questions, if you want feedback to facilitate and navigate the process. So we are always going to take the lead on assessing reasonable accommodation requests, and we need your feedback and involvement, especially when that letter is a disconnect or if a student is bringing areas of concern to your attention that are just not covered on that letter. We want to really create that partnership with you to make this happen. And then lastly, I would just say 4 things that we really would like you to know for now is that, again, we will email you a course accessibility letter upon student request. You keep in mind that what I just talked about, that what's listed on the accommodation letter may be a disconnect. You need not take action from the student or take action on the accommodation letter until you either hear from the student who reaches out to you that they want to discuss a particular accommodation, they have questions, or you may get information from our office. So students may say, hey, I want to take such and such test with such and such professor with extended time, so they'll let us know that. And then you may get an email, or you would get an email from us saying, we have this student requesting to take extended time for your class at this date and time, and then there's a whole process to follow there. And then lastly, we are a resource for you. I know our name is Student Accessibility Services, and I think a number of times faculty think that we are pro and all-out advocates for the student only, and maybe that's part of because of the way our name is shaped. But our focus really is on access. That is our commitment, that is our goal. There are times when we certainly do advocate for the student. We will be reaching out to faculty and saying, hey, we really believe that XYZ needs to happen, or can we talk about how to remove this barrier in a reasonable way? But there are a lot of times when we go back to a student and say, how your professor is doing this, or how this policy is shaped, or why this practice is in place, we can't adjust anyway. There is no other option. This is reasonable as designed, as laid out because of XYZ. So there are a lot of times where we're supporting faculty and what's happening in the classroom as well. So what I just want you to know is if you ever call us, if you have concerns about a course accessibility letter or an accommodation, your concerns will be listened to, will be respected, will be heard, and we certainly want to partner with you to create that access. So it's not a situation where we're going to, you're going to call and you're going to share your concern and we're going to say, we don't care about that. This is why you need to do what you need to do. Nothing in the ADA says that we have to do anything particularly or specifically. It's just not written like that. But the one thing that the ADA, Americans with Disability Act, does require is that we always consider a student's request. So we take time to listen to it. We take time to discuss it. And then, again, we don't have to say yes to it. We don't have to give the student what they want. But at least we can kind of consider the request. That's the one thing that we really want to do. So if you've seen, or if you've had a course accessibility letter this semester, you'll see in the language, hopefully it talks about facilitation and partnership, and certainly reach out to us if you have.
For the next month's invite, this is going to be a little bit more focusing on, again, showing some information, how you can get data on anything. So the data portal, all the 9 portal data, where people coming from institutional knowledge management, which is something I'm really myself personally want to hear more about. How you can find out anything you possibly want to know about student populations, how, consumer questions, and some of the courses they figured out. If you pass this course, you have a much higher chance of having success at DCF versus if you don't pass it. I know my Bi-1 class is one of those. If they don't pass Bi-1, the stats show they're not going to do so well moving forward. So it's really interesting information, so we're going to hear about that. And we're also going to hear about special focus on our transfer students. And so as they transfer and transition in, there's some really interesting stats. Some of it's kind of scary, but what can we help those students, that particular population of students? Because we have quite a lot of them. So those are going to be the 2 sort of focuses. Again, looking at students, but also letting us know how we can work with the better to help our job really well. So appreciate you coming.